But the main thing that I want to talk to you in this talk is about the changes that have happened over the past couple of years. A couple of years ago, we had a single ERAS application where you would have your application, you would have the experiences, publications, and that was how it was a couple of years or 4 or 5 years ago. And then 2 or 3 years ago, they started with another separate application known as the supplemental application to supplement your the main application, which had areas where you could choose some geographical preferences, add additional experiences, meaningful experiences, and things like that. Okay. It also gives you the opportunity to share your geographic preferences with programs. So say you want to preferentially be in the Northeast because your family is in the Northeast, or you have a spouse or a partner or friends in the Northeast, or you have other seniors who are in different programs in the Northeast, and you want to stay in the Northeast, and you can definitely now add multiple entries. This used to be in the supplemental portion, but now it's in the regular portion. And to elaborate more on these experiences, so now you have more elaborated portion of what these experiences are.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone. This is the usmle Sarthi team, and we are here with Dr. George Koshi, who will introduce himself. But the main idea for today is to go over the new ERAS format, the changes, why they probably made those changes, how does it impact the IMGs, and how do you smartly play the new ERAS format to maximize your chances. We will have Q&A after Dr. Koshi speaks. We'll probably, for those of you who want your text of the ERAS CV to be looked at, we will we'll ask you if you are interested. We can give you high-level overview on what to change in, say, experiences and all that. And then we'll also take questions. So all of this will be done in the chat. So stay with us. And meanwhile, I do have a poll up there that you can join. We just want to see if you are applying in this season, and do you actually understand the new ERAS CV. So looks like about 87% are applying this season, which is good. So this should be relevant to you. And about 60% or 59% do not understand or need more understanding of the new ERAS CV. So with that, let me hand it over to Dr. Koshi. Welcome, George. Please introduce yourself and then take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Pawan. And I hope all of you can hear me. All right. My name is George Villanillam. I'm a PGY5 resident in radiology, and I just wanted to talk to you about a lot of the changes that has happened with ERAS application this year. Over the past couple of years, ERAS has been experimenting with some new supplemental applications and small modifications over the past couple of years, which they've made a larger change this year. So I get it. If you're a repeat applicant, it might be harder to understand. If you're a new applicant, yes, it might be of course very overwhelming to understand that. So here I just wanted to give you a small overview of those changes and how you can use those changes to make sure your application is unique and strong. Okay, let me share my presentation during that time. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right, perfect. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But the main thing that I want to talk to you in this talk is about the changes that have happened over the past couple of years. And the reason I'm saying this is because it's important. A couple of years ago, we had a single ERAS application where you would have your application, you would have the experiences, publications, your biographical data, letters of recommendation, photograph, et cetera, et cetera. And that was how it was a couple of years or 4 or 5 years ago. And then 2 or 3 years ago, they started with another separate application known as the supplemental application to supplement your the main application, which had areas where you could choose some geographical preferences, add additional experiences, meaningful experiences, and things like that. So what happened was over 70% of the program directors who responded to their survey mentioned that they got a better picture of each applicant because of those meaningful experiences that were written in the supplemental application. Okay, so that was one of the things that's important for this year. And then the other thing that they summarized was more than 80% of the program directors who responded to that survey, they said that they used the key characteristics and primary focus areas that were mentioned in the applicant's supplemental application. They used it to make informed decisions for either residency selection or for interview process and for ranking and things like that. So what does this mean? This means that ERAS has taken all of these things from the survey and all of the feedback that they've received, and they've decided that they're not going to have a supplemental application for the 2023-2024 cycle, which is the upcoming cycle, the cycle for which you might have already registered for. Okay, so that is the summary of what it is. There is no ERAS supplemental application for this upcoming year. Okay. And it is uniform for all the specialties that are taking part in the NRMP match. Okay. So let me talk to you about some of the changes that are in for the new application season. So one of the biggest changes that has really surprised a lot of people is the limit of experiences that you can add. And for those who are not familiar with what these experiences mean, previously on the ERAS application, it was possible to add your clinical experiences, your research experiences, any volunteer experiences, or any particular experience you've had either in your home country or in the US or anywhere, and you were able to add that as an experience with a good description of what you did, and add a supervisor's name and things like that. And previously, it used to be unlimited, as many number of experiences as you could write. And this was particularly helpful for people who are older graduates and people who had a lot of experiences to write. And so this was particularly helpful because this showed that you had a swath of experience that you could bring to that program and for the program to read. Now we are extremely limited by a total of 10 experiences. And this does not mean that you have 10 clinical, 10 research, 10 volunteer, 10 military. No, it doesn't mean like that. It means you have overall total number of 10 experiences. Okay. So the importance here is that if you are a fresh graduate, it might be okay. You have, you may only have a total of 10 experiences, which is totally fine. Which is totally fine. But if you are an older graduate, or if you are somebody who has switched specialties, who are thinking of changing their, specialty preference, over time, or something like that, or you're somebody who has red flags and who are, trying to compensate for those red flags, then 10 experiences might not cut it. So in those situations, it is important for you to sit down and reflect on what are the 10 best experiences that I can put in my CV that will show the program director about the track that I want to go in. Okay, say you have 20 experiences in pediatrics and you have 4 experiences in neurology, and your goal specialty is neurology. So then you must prioritize those experiences that you have in neurology and any other experiences that remotely talk about your neurology experience in that way. Okay, it might be difficult, but that is why you need to start early on and try to curate those experiences early on in your application season. Okay, thinking of it late during the application season usually is a bad idea, and it doesn't work well. The other thing is meaningful experiences, and this was a part of your supplemental application before. So now this is part of your main application where you can self-select your top 3 most meaningful experiences, and you can add it into into the meaningful experiences portion. And this is very important because this typically means that you can add an experience that really taught you something about life or something about medicine. Maybe you're the first doctor in your whole family, or something in that experience that really taught you something meaningful that you were able to translate or take into your residency program. Okay, this should be one of the most important experiences because this should show them of what kind of person you are and show them the well-roundedness of the applicant. Okay. The other thing that they've added is they want to know more descriptive detail about how often was this experience that you did. So a lot of times we have people who do multiple rotations at a time. So there are people who do a neurology rotation for 2 days a week for 5 months. Okay, 2 days a week for 5 months, and then it's hard to put that in. It's hard to put that in a definite timeline in the older ERAS application. But on the current ERAS application, you can very well add it correctly. You can say it as weekly. You did that weekly over a period of 5 months. So now you have more. So program directors who are able to read your application have a better understanding about the things you've done and over how long. Okay, and then definition of experiences. So for example, now you can talk about what these experiences really mean, like the different types, rather than just saying clinical, like a work experience, volunteer experience, or research experience. Now you have so much more definition into what your experiences are. And this can really help you if you want to show something specific to the program. So say you are applying to a radiology residency, okay? And then you want to show them that you are part of radiology society committees. And it's hard to say that in the professional society section, but if you want to talk about your role in those societies and to show your interest in that in radiology, you can definitely talk about how your membership in that specific radiology society committee has helped you with your leadership skills or team member, or being a team player skills. And that's something that now you can add to significantly more detail and being more specific rather than just saying volunteer experience. Okay, so this helps programs identify and review your experiences, and especially those that align with their own missions. So giving you an example of how the setting preferences work. So now previously, they didn't have all of these things where you could talk about rural, suburban, or urban experiences. For example, if you have clinical experiences in a rural area, you can highlight that if you want, or a suburban or an urban area. And this just helps program complete their holistic review. It's not required, but if you have these setting preferences, you can always mention it. And this section, and this was there in the supplemental application in the past, but now this is part of your regular application now. Okay, and this is to indicate your preference or lack of preference for a certain setting, either rural or urban or suburban settings. And then you have the other part where you have experiences description field, which is also new, which indicates short descriptions focused on critical information for programs. So for example, your roles, your responsibilities, and the context for all experience entries. And I'll show you more examples. The other thing that has been added is hometown. So previously in the past applications, you could add your hometown in just free text. So wherever this place was, you could add that in your free text. Now it uses more standardized fields to collect all location information. So you can add the country, state, postal code, and the setting. And this is an example. If you look at the first box here, this is an example of how that shows up. So it's more it's more standardized, and it's more more towards it's more for them to collect accurate data and for them to create more standardized data rather than it is for you. But that also means that now you have to add all of these additional information. Okay. It also gives you the opportunity to share your geographic preferences with programs. So say you want to preferentially be in the Northeast because your family is in the Northeast, or you have a spouse or a partner or friends in the Northeast, or you have other seniors who are in different programs in the Northeast, and you want to stay in the Northeast, and you can definitely now add multiple entries. This used to be in the supplemental portion, but now it's in the regular portion. And you can add these sections, and programs will be able to see your preference for different regions of the United States, for different settings. Okay. The other change here, and this has been improving over the past couple of years, is that for those of you who have done either postgraduate training in the US or who has done other postgraduate training in your home countries, then now you have the opportunity to add the country where you've done your home country residency or training. Previously, the country would always be the US. So unless you've done an ACGME accredited or an AOA accredited residency in the US, then you could not put that in this section. But now you can add it in this section. So now it's a more standardized section rather than adding it in higher education or in your in the experiences section. So you don't have to waste a whole experiences section to write your postgraduate training. Instead, you can write your postgraduate training in this specific postgraduate training section. That includes adding your program director's name or supervisor. It may be the same most of the times. You can have city, country, program, and specialty. So that's very important. And to elaborate more on these experiences, so now you have more elaborated portion of what these experiences are. And I think, personally, I think that this is a lot of information, but it should help program directors or people who are reviewing your application some more understanding about what you have done and how much and the benefit of how much you have done. So for example, this was there before, organization, but now you're writing experience type. So that could be clinical, work, military, and any of those things. And I mentioned that later too. Your position title, and you're currently working. Participation frequency, like I said before. Now you can add weekly, monthly, yearly, every day, or every 2 weeks, or whatever. Setting, whether it's urban, suburban, rural, and primary focus area and key characteristics. And I'll talk to you about that too. And this is where you would had a 1,020 character limit description of your roles and responsibilities. Okay. When you write your roles and responsibilities, you need to be as specific as possible. Do not be very abstract in telling them, I saw a large number of patients, or I just did this, or you need to be specific. I saw close to 20 different patients each day who presented with these specific concerns. And then talk about the things you learned, the things that made that experience unique. So that's what make your experiences as unique as possible. And this is just entry 1. Like I said before, there are 10 experiences that you can add. And like I said before, you have experience category, and experience categories are, education, training. So now if you have any clinical experience, I would recommend that you put it into this section, because previously your clinical experience would have to be put into work experience. Now, you don't have to put that in work experience anymore. I would put work experience as work here, as anything that is non-clinical. Say you worked in a Chick-fil-A, say you worked in a gas station, whatever, right? If it's not clinical and you were paid for it, or maybe you were not, you can put that as work experience. But this is the most important thing. Say you did a clinical observership, rotations, internships, sub-internships, externships, any of those things now come into education and training. That whoever is looking at your application will automatically look into that section, and then they'll see that you've done so many clinical experiences. Military service, especially if you've done it here in the US. Professional organizations, like I said before, if you're a society, committee, society, any of those things, you can add it. Any other extracurricular activities, your hobbies. This is a major change because the hobby section is no longer, your hobbies and extracurricular activities section is no longer in the CV. Now you have to add it as a specific experience category. And I know the hobbies and experience category is a very important part, because every year, people people talk about it during their interviews. And this is a section that is extremely important. That also shows that you are a well-rounded person, somebody who has a life outside of medicine. And I would recommend, as painful as it may be, you have to dedicate one section or one category to talk about your extracurricular activities or hobbies. I would strongly recommend that. Okay. Then your other sections are research. Then if you mentored or taught medical students or other students or whatever, teaching assist, like research students or anything like that. Any other volunteer activities, advocacy, if you're advocating for whatever, right? If you're advocating for increased reimbursement or advocating for patients, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. As long as you put it in the correct section, it will be more effective to the person who reads it. And this is the primary focus area. There's so many different primary focus areas. So say you were doing research, you have a research category and you're adding research. You can say this is clinical or translation science or basic science or public health research or whatever. So that gives a little more understanding of what you've been doing. And key characteristics, this is again another thing that you can add to each of your experiences. And this is something that was there in the previous supplemental application, but this is much more improved. So I would recommend that in each of your experiences, try to think of what this experience has taught you and what this experience, what characteristic about yourself has this experience shown. Okay. And this is very important because the more you think and the more you think about those experiences, and the more strategic you are about adding these characteristics to different experiences, the better it is for you. Because program directors who look at these experiences and these characteristics, they will try to imagine you or try to extrapolate that into somebody who's going to be a good resident. Okay, so you need to have a good balance of the stuff that you add into your experiences. And this is why I said you need to start thinking of these experiences early on. Okay, if you haven't started it yet, start today. Think of experiences that you have done. Think of the specific things you've done. Did you have a patient where you had to have extreme empathy for, or you had an ethical dilemma where you solved an ethical dilemma, and that was part of your ethical responsibility. Maybe you were in a country where, or in a hospital where you didn't have a lot of resources, and tell us about how your ingenuity and your innovation helped in patient care, right? And these are things that program directors want to know. These are things that people want to know, because the person you are they want to see, they see that as a promise. The person you have been is a promise for the person that you will be in a residency program. Okay. And the other thing is selected 3 meaningful experiences. This is, again, like I said before, this is just how it shows up. Talk about why it was meaningful and how it influenced you. Okay, so talk about like key characteristics that you tagged in before. Don't try to write the same thing that you wrote in the purpose statement. Okay, so try not to waste that space. Use it to describe something about yourself, which is very meaningful, and how you think that's going to help your residency program. Okay, whether you want to talk about being a team player, that is great for residency program, or a team leader, how you're empathetic, how you're punctual, how you're somebody who can multitask. And, to summarize, these are your most, basic tips to reflect and identify experiences that communicate who you are and what you're most passionate about and what is most important to you. Like I said, think about it early, think about it now, and consider all these experiences as a complete set. Try to make yourself as a well-rounded person and use these experiences to paint a picture of yourself. And focus on the descriptions of the 3 most meaningful experiences to you and why they're important to you and how do they affect you. And remember, those meaningful experiences have a limit of 300 characters, while your regular experiences have a limit of 1,020 characters. Okay? And use the experiences section to complement the other parts of your application, like your person statement. Do not try to repeat the same things in each. All right, and that's pretty much about it. And I'm sure many of you already know about signals, and this has been there for a long time, and I'm sure this information is available online. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And I hope all of you start thinking about all of these things that I've talked about and make a very impactful ERAS application. Thank you.
Thank you very much, George. This is very, very useful, and to all our audience, of course, the match process undergoes evolution every year, and every 3 to 5 years there is this kind of a transformational change that can make many of you just off balance. So this is very critical. This is very different from what used to be done till last year. So make sure to pay attention. And of course, we have classes and complete guidance on all aspects of ERAS CV. If you're interested, Swati is going to post those links, because I think these changes are going to, you guys can use it as a differentiator. Do not think ERAS is now just copy paste some information and scores alone can get you there. So with that, let me just start taking some questions first, and then we'll see. So George, the first question is, if I want to apply to more than one specialty, is it possible to have different top 3 experience for different specialties?
Good question. And unfortunately, no. Your ERAS application is a single application. And that has always been the scenario if you're applying to 1, 2, or 3 or 4 specialties. So now the other thing that happens with having these selected experiences and 10 selected experiences is that you're limited to focus on 1 or maximum of 2 specialties. So now you really have to think about what you really want to do, and try to put those experiences where they can. So
Yes.
the answer is no, you cannot have different experiences for different specialties.
Yes, and this, I think, as you rightly pointed out, this is a big change. Applying to multiple specialties, maximum you could go up to 2. If you are trying 3 or 4, that's just not going to be possible. Okay. So question, I think you already answered it, but I'll ask again. Job clinical experience. How do you suggest they classify it as?
Clinical experience would be in
Yes.
in the education training portion.
Okay, not in the work.
Not in the work, yes. Right,
Okay.
right in this section.
Okay.
Right here.
If one had no ACGME residency, so basically they had a residency, but it is not ACGME accredited, where should we put it? Experience or post-grad training?
You can definitely put it in postgraduate training. There is an option in the application where you can add it as an AO training if you have had AOA training. But otherwise, whether it is an ACGME or a not ACGME, home country, or whatever training it was, you can put it in postgraduate training. It is up to the program director to understand what that means, but you can definitely highlight your application that way.
Okay. So there are, guys, we are getting a lot of questions. So I just want to emphasize, we may have more of these webinars in the coming weeks and months. So just stay with us. There are topics that I see They are for later. How to apply, elaborate about SOAP. These topics we'll cover later. There's not in this webinar, but we will, because it's not part of this. Elaboration on signaling also, I think we'll just take it in the next webinar. I know it is important. We have done many webinars on this. By the way, we do have classes on that as well. So for those of you interested, take a look at our classes. Now let me take some other questions. So I think you already answered it, but the question is meaningful experiences. The top 3 are actually part of those 10 experiences, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Does the program you are signaling have to match your geographic preference?
Yeah, good question. But there are multiple areas of so you have not just one entry for geographic preferences. You can add up to 3, I think, or more. So as long as it's within any of the top 3, it's fine.
Okay.
It's
I was
not
waiting for
one specific geographic section that you can prefer. You can prefer multiple geographic sections.
Okay. So I was waiting for this question because I knew this will come, but so it has come. How do you, how do you recommend we distribute the experiences? So in each category, so at least one hobby, educational. So do we have a sense of the distribution of those 10?
This is actually a really good question, and I can only tell you that it's going to be really personalized based on who you are, your background. But in general, if it was me, I would try to make my application rounded by doing more clinical, some research, some volunteer, and one hobby. Okay,
Yeah,
and that's how. And if I were to go into another specialty, sometimes I would try to, if I didn't have a lot of research, probably remove one of the research and add society, volunteer, and then hobby. But I would like some representation of all of them. But in terms of whether you need 4 or 5 of each, that depends on your particular application. I'm sure. I think, as Pawan said, I think the team may be able to help you.
Yeah. So again, guys, this is very, very personalized now. ERAS is becoming more personalized. So if you need help, we will help. So take a look at our plans. This is something which we do in our classes as well. Then the next question, and by the way, we did plan to have text from your ERAS CV is part of this workshop, but I think given the questions I'm seeing, we'll have to do a different workshop, maybe in a week or 10 days, where we'll actually review your CV as well, maybe some bullet points. But let me go over the questions. What category does the home country internship fall into? Now, internship is requirement, as you know, George, in certain countries like India. It may not be a requirement in other countries like Pakistan. So which category will the home country internship fit into?
So that goes into your education training experience.
Education training.
Especially if you are an older graduate, you should and you have like a lot of other experiences, like more recent experiences. I would reconsider putting it, but if you're a fresher graduate, you don't have a lot of experiences, then definitely put your internship into this section, into your education training experience.
Okay. Is it better to have no setting preferences, or should we mention as an IMG?
Setting of what? I'm guessing geographical. You mean?
I guess, yeah, that's the question. I guess, yeah, geographical maybe.
Yeah, you can definitely skip that section, but if you are, say, my examples usually say you are somebody who's applying to internal medicine and you are an IMG who requires visa. Okay, in general, the West Coast programs are going to be really unfavorable to you in general. Okay, I don't know your application, but this is in general. So you can afford to not put the West Coast section as a geographical preference. You can just put Northeast, South and Central as your geographical preference, if that makes sense. But my point is, if you do not add a geographical preference, then it might the programs who would usually invite you may think that you are not interested in that site. So my point is, since that section is available, try to use it in the most strategic way possible. Okay, if you skip that section, they said that no information will be provided, but why not use it to your advantage, since you know that you're not going to go to the West Coast at all?
Okay, there is a question, there may be some confusion, so I'll read that. So there is an option to write research as one of the 10 experiences, or more than one, I guess. But then there is also a column for research, papers, and publications. So can you explain the difference?
Of course, research is an experience category. The other one is a publication section. That's where you write what you have done, right? Rather, you're showing them your the outcomes. You're telling them about your publications. You're writing the actual publications. You're writing the actual abstracts and things like that. This is where you write about the experience in the experiences section.
Okay. And would they bother with a master thesis in a medical field? I did long time ago. Would it go under research? A thesis, I guess, part of either your master's or PhD back home?
Certainly, you can put that as a part of your research. But again, think about it. And you said, like you said, this is a long time ago. Think about it. And how does it align with your current residency section, the residency that you have selected? Say it is a master's in OB-GYN and you're going into neurology. There may not be a specific trajectory there. But if it was if you want to highlight how you know research and you know how to do certain things in research, then you can definitely mention it as as something that you can translate into bringing into residency. Okay. So that will be in your research section, but think about it, whether you need to put it or not.
So we are getting a lot of questions on our match plan. So Swati, if you could post a link. So basically, there is gold, bronze, or turbo match plan. All plans come with, our closed Telegram group advice. They come with classes. So all classes are live and recorded. Some plans have digital versions, other you can attend live as well. But we have very comprehensive classes on like this new ERAS CV2 classes here, 2 or 3 on personal statement, program outreach. So all aspects of match are covered. And then of course you can set up time with me. There are mock interviews as well. So take a look. It's too much to go over unless you have a specific question on any plan. I'm happy to answer. But I'll ask Swati to post a link and, especially the Turbo CV Plus plan, which if you're looking for a cheaper option for getting your ERAS, CV, etc. reviewed, or the Turbo Match, both of them will be a good option if you are interested. Now let me see. Can you explain what kind of articles we can include in research monographs?
Not a lot, and those are like very specific things. If you could give me more examples of what you've written and what it is, because typically most of the articles that you publish, it is in a separate specific category. If it is submitted under a monograph category in a specific journal, then yes, but most of the articles are either you can have full-length article or case reports or whatever, but it's typically, I think the ERAS section is peer-reviewed application, peer-reviewed full-length article, and then you have non-peer-reviewed, then you have online and things like that. So a monograph is usually not in the sections, meaning you don't usually put it into the section. Okay.
Where can I, let me take this. Where can I contact you if I want to ask you about specifics of the match plan? So either email contact@usmlesarthi.com or Swati, she's putting her email as well. And other question which I saw earlier, how many reviews do you provide? So your personal statement will undergo 3 reviews. Your CV will undergo 2 reviews, in addition to all the classes that you get and one-on-one sessions do you get. Let me see which other questions we are getting. Is it advisable to put geographical preference as an IMG? As a program in non-preferred areas, can they know what preference I put. So let's say I put a geographic preference. How do programs which are not in the area, what do they see in my application?
I mean, all programs can see your exact geographical preference. So say, like I said before, if you are applying to all programs and you've put your geographical preference as Northeast, South, and Central, or Midwest, or wherever, and you did not put the West as a geographical preference, programs in the West are going to see that. They're going to see that you are not, preferring them. But at the same time, in that scenario that I mentioned, they were not going to invite you anyways, right? So it doesn't matter. You are letting go of that particular preference. So you're just focusing on those programs where you think you have a higher chance. So yes, all programs can see your preferences.
Yeah. So there are questions which I think are fairly detailed, and we won't be able to just advise here, especially if you are our students. For example, one question is, if I've done 2 tele, 5 on-site USC, 3 research experiences, many volunteering, I was planning to put 2 tele, 5 USC. So the details about what you're planning to put in the CV, unfortunately, we have to see your experiences before we can tell you whether this tele versus that on-site is more useful. So it won't be fair for us to give comment on that without looking at how to distribute these experiences. So Jeevan is asking, are there advantages in now applying to multiple specialties?
Unlikely. Because it's hard to show your interest in multiple specialties in that small space of 10 experiences.
Okay. Yeah.
That is the short answer.
Yep. And again, if you look at our ERAS, CV classes and the PS classes, that is exactly what we tell you, which specialty your experiences align to, how to target that, how to bring all of that together in the personal statement. So all this we are actually covering in our classes as well as the review of your CV. So one question, okay, so this is a good one. Does the experience, the entries have to be in any order, like clinical, hobby, etc., or what? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. Typically, as far as I know, ERAS will arrange it in the order that they have. Okay, they have a predetermined order. No matter what you do, it's gonna arrange it in that.
Oh, so they will have it as a predetermined order, like
Yes.
maybe research could come first, volunteering could come first, or they used to do it. I see.
Yeah, so I think if you look at the previous ERAS applications, your first section was always work experience. Second would be volunteer experience, and then it would be research experience. So that's how it usually works.
Okay. But they will still all be sorted in chronological order or in the order, most recent first? Do we know?
I don't know that yet, but that's the benefit of having the ERAS CV. When you download the PDF, you can see how things are. So at every point when you make your ERAS CV, just download the PDF, just save it and download the PDF, and then try to play around with it, try to bring one experience higher above the other and see if ERAS changes it. For publications, they don't do that. They do it based on the alphabetical order of the last name of the first author. So it's tricky that way. But for experiences, they typically, I know that they use chronological order, but try and see if the new one lets you change stuff up.
Yeah. A lot of questions coming on program outreach. So yes, program outreach is important. Yes, it'll continue to be important. And of course, we have classes on that, especially we included a couple of new classes this year. How do you use artificial intelligence, AI tools like ChatGPT to help you in this program outreach and throughout the season? So take a look, and Swati probably can guide you to our Matchflix platform as well, where you can see trailers of all our classes. Okay, let me see. if one has been doing externship for a year, so I assume this is US clinical experience, but have not been paid for it, should it come under training or work?
Training. It's an externship.
Training.
You are not going to reduce the quality of it by putting it as work. You want to say is education and training, and that is 100%. Like, you don't have to be paid for it.
Okay. So next question is on rotation. So if you're looking for rotations, Swati can post the link, and then yes, there are rotations where you can do it without step one. So Swati, maybe give them the link to our rotations platform. So we are not taking specific questions on specific programs. So, so please avoid that. I'm not going to take that if you are interested in any program. Next question, for medical school awards, can we put any conference award or certification? I don't understand the question.
I didn't either, but there is a section for medical school awards. You can just put, whatever you think is relevant. Like if you have a poster award, or award for best resident, or best medical student, best intern, highest attendance, or whatever. Or sometimes people get awards for the top medical student graduate, whatever awards that are relevant to your medical school education, you can certainly put into that.
So there is a question, I think I already answered it, but how important it is to stay active on Twitter, other social media platforms for program outreach. It is very important. We have classes on that can tell you how exactly to go about it. But George, very quickly, your take on Twitter and some of the other social media platforms.
Extremely important. Extremely important. You see residency programs reaching out with open houses. You'll see program directors and the residents and chief residents, and you'll see all of them talking about things. It's always beneficial to hang out and see what they're up to. Sometimes you may figure out things from the program just by the conversations that are happening, or you may be able to attend program open houses. So it's certainly very important. And we know of people who have reached out to other programs through Twitter and all these things, and gotten research opportunities, rotations through these opportunities. So it's something. It is a free resource. Why not use it to the best, right?
Okay, we are coming to the end, but let me take one or two questions. So jobs like physician assistant, are these helpful in the match?
Certainly, they're pretty helpful, but you need to think about how much of direct work you are doing with in terms of patient care. A lot of times PAs do a lot of they do a lot of clinical care, but how much are you involved in decision making? How much are you involved in doing the role of a resident? So are you somebody who's teachable and things like that? So if your role is relevant, then yes. Otherwise, if you think about it, and if you feel like you are not working in the capacity of a resident, or not close to the capacity of a resident, then consider doing clinical rotations, actual clinical rotations. It might be easier for you to do it in the same place that you are at.
Okay. I think this is coming from Facebook. Submitting 3 LORs from 3 different physicians from the same hospital. Overall, what do you think of it? Is it positive, negative, or what?
It is absolutely fine. Yes, I mean, it appears to some programs, and this is not all programs. Some programs may think that you want to stay back in that program, the program that gave you the 3 letters, but it is not a red flag or anything of that sort. The only thing I have to say is try to get as many letters of recommendations as you can, strong letters, blinded letters, and preferably in the same specialty that you're applying to. So I think there's a limit of 4. So you can get as many as you can, but you can apply with a 4, and then try to do 4 itself, not just 3.
Okay. Given that interviews are virtual even this year, does it make sense to be in the US during the interview season?
Good question. And I must tell you, there are programs that this year are doing hybrid. So you want to make use of that opportunity to see the place, express your interest in person. So not all programs are going to be doing it virtual. Even last year, we had internal medicine and then a couple of other specialty programs doing it in person. So
Yep.
if you have an opportunity, don't miss it.
And we do have interview preparation classes, questions, detailed classes. So all of you who may be interested, take a look, and maybe Swati, you can post a link on interview preparation also, if people are interested. Okay. So with that, I think we are coming to the end. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, George. This was great, excellent. And guys, the links will be on for some time. If you want to grab those links, if you are interested, we will have more of these webinars. If you want to attend our classes, the links are there. And let us know how we can help you in the new ERAS format and during the interview season. But thank you, everyone. And thanks, George. This was very, very helpful.